Welcome to this episode of eDiscovery Mode, a ModeOne podcast that explores trends in the eDiscovery industry. Today's episode is titled Mobile Collection Myths: What Gets Lost in Translation? In this episode, Frye, Chief Innovation Officer at ModeOne, is joined by Jason Voss, Chief Technology Officer at Kuro Group, to discuss the growing misconceptions around mobile data collections, why collecting everything doesn't actually mean you have everything, where data gets lost across devices and platforms, and what legal teams need to understand to ensure complete, defensible collections. And now, Ryan, take it away.
Jason, good to see you, man. Are you home or on the road this week?
Good to see you as well. I'm home.
Man, it's pretty rare that one of us isn't on the road at all times, it seems like. Yeah.
The typical problem we try and touch base.
Yeah, exactly. Well, cool, man. Well, thanks for joining. And, I know you and I have kind of been in this space quite some time. When did you get your first start?
Oh, boy. 2000. I started on January 2nd or 3rd of 2000, which makes it really easy to remember when I started. I started way back in the day when it was still mostly repro. And, it started on the tail end of all those, was it the Knight Rider guys? Knew some of those guys and heard plenty of stories and stuff. But yeah, I remember when it was repro and boxes of paper everywhere. And then people started getting smart and going, hey, I don't want to look through all these boxes of paper. Where are my 30 boxes of paper? And they started scanning stuff and, and the databases started and blowbacks and all that stuff. And I remember hearing, and the funny thing is I had an IT background before I got into this industry.
Sure.
I got recruited by somebody I knew. And then eDiscovery was very young, and I was immediately like, what is that? And started paying a lot more attention to the electronic side of things and transitioned over to the operations side.
That's funny. So you lived right through the Y2K kind of moment and made the transition. That's great. That's awesome.
Yes, we all survived.
That's awesome. Well, I know you and I have crossed paths a lot, especially in the industry, and we've both kind of been heads down on some fun stuff with short message data problems. I always like to joke we might be wired a little differently than most because we find it interesting and enjoy kind of nerding out about that. But, kind of what you and I were chatting about the other day was just kind of one of the biggest misconceptions in this kind of mobile and new modern data collection, kind of era that we're in. It's once you collect everything, you have everything. And I think we kind of agreed that that's kind of not reality. That's a little optimistic assumption. And kind of if you lead that way, then you get a bunch of downstream problems. And that's where you and I kind of come in to kind of help, catch some of those things early. So is that your experience as well? Or are you seeing, folks kind of assuming too many of the wrong things at times?
Absolutely. I guess unless you're as hands-on with the data as we are, it does make sense, right? Because so many things are accessible from your phone, but it doesn't mean it lives in your phone. A recent one we've had is all of a sudden I thought most people realize this, but email isn't actually stored on a phone. That's one we've had multiple customers recently where we've actually had to not only tell them, but also reiterate, hey, the email doesn't live on your phone. You've got little snippets of it. You got previews of it. It goes out and it accesses the data from somewhere else. So this isn't a valid collection point. But, email is kind of an easy example to cite, but you can imagine that also gets a lot more complicated with corporate messaging and social media. And there's things that you can't collect from the phone. Like you could get messaging portions of social media from a phone, but you're not going to get the post. So you're right. It is a constant education battle. And the other thing that's fun is the goalposts move all the time. Whether it's new applications coming out that are or are not submitted and may or may not have their issues, as well as, I'm sure you've seen it as well with like Apple and iTunes backups where, iCloud rather, backups were a very good source at one point, but Apple's kind of changing the architecture of what's stored where.
Yeah, that's crazy. Well, you hit on a good topic, text messages and short messages. What have you guys seen that's taught us to look early in the process?
Well, yeah, device is one, right? I'm sure you've seen it as well. Whether it's an iPhone or an Android, you're kind of dealing with a different set of tools and circumstances right off the bat. But also, again, how their devices are set up. As an iPhone, for example, are you storing your messages in the cloud? Do you have multiple devices? Are you even have multiple devices? Are they synced and are you using them all? We had a fun one where we had a user that had an iPhone, an iPad, and a Mac and was using them all for messaging. And we were not getting the same messages from collecting all three devices.
Yeah, that's a completely different scenario than a person with a single phone, having to quickly navigate that. That's tough. I mean, it sounds like you've done a ton of testing and obviously lots of experiences. Is that kind of what brought you to evaluate and, bolt on ModeOne to your guys' tool belt, was just having to try out all of the different ways?
I would say really, well, it certainly led us down to having it a preferred tool for certain scenarios. But I would say what really started us down with it was, the privacy concerns. Used to, you had to sit down and image an entire phone and get everything. And I get it. Like, people obviously, it feels like an invasion of privacy. You may have a very small percentage of business correspondence on your phone, and meanwhile, your entire personal life is on there. Yeah. So, especially when you get into the C-suite and stuff, they tend to push back quite a bit about having all of their stuff collected. And I get it. And, that was the main thing that got us to start looking at ModeOne, was the ability to do those targeted collections. And also time. My God, we had one where we were on site with, was it furniture or clothing? But anyway, it was an international C-suite guy. And we were 4 hours into imaging his iPhone, and he's like looking at missing his international flight because there was so much data on the phone. And it was taking so long to do the full image.
Oh, no. Yeah, that's crazy.
But everybody was sweating a little bit.
Man, that is probably one of the worst situations to be in, but those experiences kind of help us.
Nope, wish I did. How much longer? I don't know. Hopefully only a few more minutes.
Yeah. And once you disconnect, you're going to have to start over with some of those full tools, so that's crazy. Well, that's pretty cool to know and hear that, kind of your experiences have got you to a part of being able to like adjust your scoping, is what I kind of heard you say earlier. Like you said, I think that's really key that you hit on. Have they recently upgraded their phone? Did they fully transfer their data or not? Are they using multiple devices? Because we know that data can be spread out. It's kind of making sure the examiners, the ones running the tools, can answer those questions. Do the attachments live on the phone? Could they be living in a cloud? Could they be living on a WhatsApp server or WeChat server? It's kind of not always the technical questions that are important. It's those scoping questions to understand, what was this person doing?
Extent, what do you use? Do you use WhatsApp? Do you use corporate messaging, on your phone? Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's good. And I think that's kind of what, we definitely tried to do, is it take some of the real world experiences, our clients' feedback like yours, put that into the documentation and training for ModeOne, because like you said, we've been in the weeds for so long. Some of this stuff is second nature, but if you don't deal with it every day, it can be a challenge.
Thank you for that documentation. It is useful because on our end, it tends to ebb and flow what we work with. So there, it might be 2.5 months since the last time I've done an Android collection, and it's like, wait, what was that? You just get kind of used to the iPhone process. So we do, even though we've used it and done it, we do reference that documentation.
Oh, that's awesome. That's good. Well, cool. Well, so since we're kind of on the hot topic of attachments, I think the other hot topic aside from AI is really, been modern attachments. And I know you guys are doing really cool stuff with that, with text, with email, anything else that you can find. Have you had any cool experiences or any wisdom you want to share on what stuff you guys are doing there? I know that's important these days.
Yeah, I mean, kind of over on the Converse side of the house, we do process the corporate messaging as well. And, that's Slack and Teams. And Slack has always been a great source to process. They from day one have had a very data rich and defined export JSON, the CAN default export from it. It's great. It's consistent. There's a lot of information to extract. And you're able to actually download the links. They have probably in the weeds, but they've got a different vetting system where in order to do that export, you have to show that you have the proper credentials as an officer of the company and in order for them to approve the corporate-wide export. And then they vetted that, you actually get live links in the export that you don't have to provide credentials to download. And you've got to build a process to download them in a systematic manner and associate them to the right record. But that one's always been easier to process or more consistent. But over on the Teams side of things, I think a lot of people know that when you go to collect Teams data from Purview, which is Microsoft's collection tool, they kick Teams out as emails. They come out in a PST along with your other emails. If you're not careful and you don't uncheck them, that's another thing. If you don't want Teams data coming out in your export, make sure you exclude it. But it comes mixed in, and then there's a lot of challenges both in threading the conversations back together, as well as the attachments are technically, they come through as SharePoint links. The only attachments you get in those PFTs or those emails are images. So any PDF, Office document, any of that stuff is a SharePoint link, and you would need credentials to use it. But now, again, that is a moving target, but now they've definitely gotten a little bit better about you can export those SharePoint documents separately at the same time, but then you've got to go back and associate them. So we developed the code to go ahead and actually associate those SharePoint downloads with the email, which we then turn into either RSMF, or we've got a proprietary kind of bubble PDF format we generate that works anywhere.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I mean, I think that's been kind of the race, the last couple of years has been who can kind of help present the data stitched back together the nicest way. So that's awesome to hear you guys are doing it.
It's one of the same problems you guys help solve. You get all these messaging databases, and at the end of the day, it's a database where each message is a line entry, and it's like, hey, how do we associate these and present these as a conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's awesome. And it was really good chatting with you, Jason. Where are you headed to next? Am I going to see you at a conference this summer? You got any fun vacations planned? What's going on? The schedule's pretty light right now. We're looking at doing something possibly out. We've got an office out in Denver, so we're looking to put something together out there. Don't know about ILTA this year. We'll see. Cool. Well, keep us in mind. If you make it to ILTA, we'll be there. And if you do anything in Denver, that's just a quick flight from KC for me. So it'd be good to see you. Yeah. We'll definitely let you know. Good talking with you. Thanks again, Jason.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of eDiscovery Mode. Follow us on LinkedIn for updates on new episodes, or visit us online at www.modeone.io.